little over 3 years ago, I started attending the University of Central Oklahoma for the first time. I came in as an engineering physics major, and I was really excited to get my scientific career underway. Now, a little background information on myself. I grew up in a very scientific household. My father and mother both worked in the medical field. My grandmother worked in pediatrics. Both my grandfathers were engineers of some sort. Since I was as little as I can remember, I always wanted to be an engineer. That's what my grandfathers had done. I loved math and science, and I was good at it. I loved taking things apart, putting them back together, and seeing how the world worked in a different way. Coming into college, I was really excited to meet a whole bunch of new people on top of the experiences I would have in my scientific career. I started to see something though. When you come to college, you have a very similar conversation with every person. You ask their name, you ask where they're from, you ask what their interests and hobbies are, and you ask what their major is. Now, a lot of those conversations would vary amongst person to person, but obviously your answers stay the same. But there was something interesting though that I started to notice when I told people what I was wanting to do. I was currently majoring in engineering physics, and I always received the same two responses. Wow, you must be really smart. And I was stupid by no means, but I wasn't the genius that they portrayed me to be. Or wow, that's really, really hard. Now, engineering and physics, sure, are not the easiest of subjects, but I don't think that they get a fair rap in their difficulty or lack thereof. So today I'm going to talk about why STEM sucks. So coming into college, again, like I said, I was always very excited to be a scientist in a way and pursue my career field. I loved biology, chemistry, physics, engineering. I loved all of it. And I saw the true beauty in science. When I see science, I don't see a whole bunch of math equations that are too hard for me to do, and I don't see a bunch of busy work, but I see the true beauty in nature. I see us as a human race pursuing goals to go to the moon and beyond. But whenever I try and explain that to people, I always get a very similar response as well. They're bored. They don't care. They couldn't show any more interest or any less interest in what I had to say. And that's very discouraging for me, because it was about this time that I really started doing some soul searching, and I loved engineering. It was a lot of fun, but I decided that it wasn't what I wanted to do for a career. I did not find the passion in it that I think my grandfather had in it. So after some soul searching, talking with my family, doing a lot of research on my own, I decided I wanted to teach, but I still wanted to remain in the sciences. So it was at this time, about one semester into my college career, that I changed to science education. Being a science education major, I think, was the best decision that I ever made. I could help inspire others. I could help others enjoy science and see it the way that I saw it. But we still had the problem at hand. Everybody thinks it's so hard and isn't willing to give it a try. So I went on the assumption, I never thought it was that hard, but everybody else did. So I did a little bit of research, and this is what I found. As you can see, the hardest subject amongst boys and girls that they assume from ages 13 to 17 years old is math. 1 in 3 boys think that math is their hardest subject, and almost 1/2 of girls. So we're looking at about 1/3 to 1/2 of our students think that math is the hardest subject that they will come across. Next in line is science. 15% of boys think science is their hardest subject, and then almost 1/4 for girls. So what we're looking at is almost 1/2 to 2/3 of our student population thinks science and math are their hardest subjects. And yes, science is hard and math is difficult in their own rights, but why are they so much harder than everything else? Why do they turn students away at the rate that they do? Why do they make students always look like this? So one day I was studying and I was getting ready for my I was getting for one of my biology tests. This is a year or two into college, and I was doing some flashcards, and I had one of my roommates help me with it. And he reads a definition to me, and I go, I have no idea what that is. It was almost as if he was speaking a separate language to me that I had never heard before. So I asked him, I said, what was the definition? And it was homeostasis. If you've taken even the most simplest biology courses, you understand that homeostasis is the body reacting to its environment to contain a sense of normalcy. If you're cold, your body will shiver to raise its body temperature. If you're hot, you'll sweat. That's homeostasis in a nutshell. But when I started to look at it, and I looked up just the pure definition, this is what we found. The tendency toward a relatively stable equilibrium between interdependent elements, especially as maintained by physiological processes. Even for a college student who loves science, that's hard. That's difficult. And the sad part was, I looked in my high school textbooks, and this wasn't much different. We're expecting 13 and 14-year-olds to understand this kind of vocabulary and this kind of definitionism for homeostasis and other processes. But it didn't stop here. I went and looked up some other terms, and just for example, I looked at fertilization. In an easy way to put it, fertilization is an egg and a sperm combining together. They form a zygote, and that grows into an organism. This is what my high school textbook had written down. Fertilization, or fertilization, also known as general fertilization, conception, fecundation, syngamy, and impregnation, is the fusion of gametes to initiate the development of new individual organisms. That's hard. That's difficult. That's just hard to understand, let alone for a 22-year-old, but for a 13 and 14-year-old. That's just hard, and we can't expect students to be interested in classes when they can't get their feet off the ground. So I did more research, and I said, well, maybe students just don't like science. Maybe they just don't like math. Maybe they just go into school and they already don't like it. But the same group of students, when asked what was their favorite subject, a quarter of them said math. You move down, what is the second most liked subject? Is science. So we're looking in 2 out of 5 students think math and science are their favorite subject, but yet they're the most difficult. Well, why are the favorite subjects so difficult? And I think it's because of the intense vocabulary that we're giving onto them. Now, I'm not promoting a dumbing down or a simplifying or making the classes easier, but we've got to find a way as educators and as scientists to put science and mathematics in terms that these young students can understand and want to learn. Now, I see science in a beautiful way. I've always found it to be the most beautiful thing in the world. It does make up the world. And when I walk into a science classroom, I get excited. And I know a lot of my peers, adults, and students alike don't feel that way. They walk into a math classroom or science classroom and they're immediately intimidated. They're scared. They don't want to be there. And when you walk in with that mindset, you're not going to succeed. When I see science, I see it in a way that I think Neil deGrasse Tyson put best.
So when I look up at the night sky, and I know that, yes, we are part of this universe, we are in this universe, but perhaps more important than both of those facts is that the universe is in us. When I reflect on that fact, I look up. Many people feel small because they're small and the universe is big, but I feel big because my atoms came from those stars. There's a level of connectivity. That's really what you want in life. You want to feel connected. You want to feel relevant. You want to feel like you're a participant in the goings-on of activities and events around you. That's precisely what we are, just by being alive.
Science is beautiful. Science is important. STEM is important. It is the lifeblood for tomorrow, for technology, for innovations, for medicine. And today's generations, my generation, the generation before me and older, our time is limited. Tomorrow is going to be led by the generations younger than I and the generations to come. If we put them into a world and then into a classroom where they don't understand the material because it's too difficult to start off and where they can't get excited about it, we're going to miss out on something potentially very, very special. We never know which students are going to walk in and be the next scientists, engineers, technologists, or mathematicians. We don't know who the next Albert Einstein will be, who the next Neil deGrasse Tyson will be. We don't know who will make a name for themselves in the STEM fields. So it starts with today. It starts with inspiring tomorrow. And it starts with making engaging classrooms for our students. Thank you.